that says Duane is recording.
Okay.
Just so you know, which is a
Yes.
nice feature. Because we used to do it without asking people. No, I always ask. But anyway, hey, thanks so much. Welcome to Utah Valley University. We've got about, I'm going to just do a little pan of the camera here. We've got about, I don't know, I would guess about 50 people here, maybe, or so. Wave and say hi. Spread out. And you know, I really love the film. It's so charming. And so I've got two. I told them I was going to ask the two most obvious questions, and I would make them ask the less obvious questions. Would make them work for the questions. So the first thing I want to ask you is, well, the second question I'm going to ask you is about the dogs versus animation, okay, and the seamlessness of that, and where that all is. You just froze, and I'm hoping that you didn't go away. Are you there? There you are. Okay.
Yeah.
And but before going that, I want to ask about going into animation. You keep freezing up. Am I freezing up when you're freezing up?
No.
Okay, perfect. Then we will ignore you.
There's a bell.
Up and not worry about it.
Okay.
So the first question is just, can you talk a little bit about you going from, you were a layout artist and a storyboard artist, and then started directing animation, and then that transition. I asked if any of the animating students came in, and they're completely unreliable because they're animators, and we're full of films. We're full of film students. Well, none of they're aspiring animators. So there you go. We're full of film students.
They're all back in their cubicles animating, hopefully, you know, all night long.
They're animating.
Yeah, that's what animators do. They stay behind and animate the whole time. So in terms of my transition into I guess directing, I started. Oh, I got a cat here. Sorry. I started as an artist in animation, and I think it was going into storyboarding that really led to wanting to direct, because I think that as a storyboard artist, you're really directing the film in your mind. You don't have the final say in it, but you are thinking about, you know, obviously thinking about all the shots, compositions, performances, and even I started thinking about and even music. Are you losing me, or am I?
Yeah, we lost you for just a second.
Oh, okay.
That's the problem. So I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's on our end. We were doing it fine before, but
yeah.
So
let me just try something here. I might lose you for a second. If I lose you, I'll just dial you back.
Okay. Maybe we lost him.
How about now? Better?
You're back, so that's good.
Okay. Good.
We didn't lose you.
Yeah, good. So yeah, I think storyboarding really feels like directing, and it's a way to start to think about storytelling holistically, and thinking about all of these different elements, in symphony, from performance to music to composition and camera. And that was, I think, what really gave me some confidence to try to start directing.
Excellent. And you started directing in animation. What about suddenly going from directing animation to F. Murray Abraham?
Yeah, I mean, daunting. That particular scene, for so many reasons. I mean, one of the most iconic scenes in animation, possibly even film, but also live singing on set. Murray was a little bit nervous about the singing part of it, to be fair to him, I mean, I think he did an unbelievable job. But you know, he was nervous too, and I think there was a lot of anxiety that led to a lot of prep for something like that. So yeah, like the transition from live action into animation for me was it's a big one. It's in many ways, fundamental ways, it's the same. It's the when you're thinking about storytelling and and composition and lighting and all of those things are the same. It's just the process of how you're getting to that end result is so different. So you to really reorient your brain, and it's not as simple as going from manual to stick. It's like changing languages.
Okay, I'm gonna let someone else ask about dogs.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you another question because it occurred to me, and this is I teach editing, and so one of the things I talk about is editing animation, which honestly, until fairly recently, I had no idea what that even looked like. And so, can you talk about, for a bunch of people who've never really thought about it probably before, what does the editor in animation do?
Well, I mean, it starts with, I mean, you're crafting the story in storyboards and animation, and it starts with building an animatic before you've got footage. So you're, as the editor, is so key to start to work out the timing of what the show is going to be. So you're editing just with still images. And usually the editor scratching all the voices with the director, and it's music, and it is this early blueprint for what you're going to make in animation. So then the footage comes back, and it's all the timing feels different, and it takes on a completely different tone, and then you've got footage, and you're editing in quite the same way that you would in live action, where you're like, this is we reorient this. We could by putting these shots first. Let's reveal backwards and start with our two shot, and then come out to our wide. You're doing the same things that you would do in live action. And you don't have probably the same amount of footage, not shooting as much coverage in animation, because you want to try to do that coverage in storyboard drawings, where it's a lot simpler.
It's free, or it's cheaper. Yeah.
It's cheaper.
Yeah.
Not free.
Right. Not free. No. And how much? I mean, I've never even thought about this, because I actually, was very much I was very much aware of. And, I know several editors who work in animation, and so when I was aware of the animatics aspect of it. But then what you were just talking about going in and then working on it after the footage came in, do you often go out and have them create, like, essentially new what we would call pickups? I mean, do you do that frequently or occasionally, or I mean?
Depending on time and budget,
it's
as much as you can. I mean, it's as you guys will all understand, I'm sure everything takes on a completely new meaning once you're seeing it actually playing out in animation, or actually playing in live, and even in color. Timing changes once it's in color. You're also, you've got the real actors' voices, and all those things change. So on what I've done in animation, I almost always have either like a Cintiq setup if I'm drawing in Photoshop, or even just Post-its, and I'm sitting there banging out shots that we're scanning and plugging into the the actual reels or into the animatic, and then calling for new shots and yeah. Oftentimes it's it's second unit type stuff, but a lot of times it is I need a close up here, or we're close to this whole scene. We got to open this up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about this? I mean, did you storyboard this film, and how tightly was it boarded?
I boarded. There's like maybe 2 sequences that I boarded myself, but we had a full story team and a head of story, and treated it a bit like an animation process where we tried to board as much of the movie as possible. That said, this was a very, very tight schedule. We started in March of 18 and delivered in October of last year. So it was for a movie that's got 1,200 shots in visual effects. Most of those are full CG animation, very, very complex animation. It was a tight schedule. So we didn't have the time that you would have on an animated film, where you're iterating scenes and putting the entire movie up on reels. We couldn't put the entire movie up. We focused on difficult sequences and song sequences and important scenes, and then shot lists.
Okay, let's get people up, right? You guys, come on, who's going to come up? And because I don't want to take it for them. You and I could just have a conversation.
Yeah.
I always have to. So they're going to come up. They're going to say their name so that you know who's talking to you.
Cool.
And how about it?
Hi, my name is Matthew. I'm a freshman in the editing track. My question for you is, for the dog models and their emotions, did you have a human reference, or were they just purely dog-based?
Both. It's a really good question. Nice to meet you, Matthew. And for this movie, we had witness cameras for all the voice recordings, kind of similar to what we're doing right now. So for Justin and Tessa, we would have cameras on them, and though that footage was all given to all the animators, so they had that as reference. That said, we also had tons and tons of footage of the real dogs that we shot on set, and we used that footage as well. So the methodology for the film was that we weren't going to do human emotions per se. We were going to try to translate the human expressions that Justin and Tessa and Janelle and everyone was doing through real behavior that we're seeing in the dog. So that the facial expressions, the ear twitches, the tail wags, all the little steps, all those things. We wanted to mine the real movements and real eye darts and little eyebrow things, all that stuff. The timing of all of them taken from the real dog, but then used sort of in concert with each other. Like if I use that little eye flick that Rose, who played Lady, does with that little ear movement, she would move her. She had really very expressive ears, and she would move those ears. If she moves those up with that eye flick, that looks like what Tessa was doing when she said that. That reminds me of that, and we sort of put those together, and then it gives you the emotion. It was a complex way of going about it, and took multiple iterations, even to get up to speed with the style. And sometimes we hit it, and sometimes I would admit it looks it sometimes looks jarring. I mean, talking dogs is jarring anyway, but
Okay, so just to review, you had human emotions as like the main part, but for everything else, it was basically dog instinct of eyebrows, tail wags, like body language shit. That was basically all that was captured.
Yeah, I mean, and we were using the dog performance stuff for the timing of how and the movement and how all that stuff moves. I mean, it's all, we didn't use human expressions per se. We had to just sort of translate into what the dog would do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. I'm gonna pass it on to my fellow.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm in the I'm in the graphic design program.
Oh, cool.
And I was kind of wondering, how did you, with your storyboard team, get over any conflict resolution for storyboarding?
How we got over what exactly? Sorry.
A conflict resolution. So when you had conflicting ideas in the storyboarding process.
Oh, I mean, ultimately, you know, the board artists are pitching ideas, and we're iterating in storyboards, but it's you know, the best idea wins, and the they may not agree, but it, you know, ultimately it's, you know, that's in many ways that's the role of the head of story, and then ultimately my role too, and we make, you know, sometimes some tough decisions. There's lots and lots of boards that never get used. That's just the process. You go through, iterate, and dialogue changes, scenes change. And that's as a board artist, that's the process. Is that you have to be really merciless with and brutal with your own drawings, and they just don't mean anything. They are a means to an end, and you just have to, you know, bang through iterations. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Cool.
Hi, Charlie.
Hey.
I'm Christopher. I'm just kind of starting out in the cinema program here.
Cool.
So my question, first of all, I love the movie. A lot of clever moments in it, and
thank you very much.
Got a lot more laughs out of me than the original animation. But so my question is, I was really impressed by the opening of the movie, with kind of the gray shot of the town, and as it kind of melded into real life, and then it just, you know, not pans, but just kind of goes all the way to the window. And I was kind of curious how you managed to pull that off. Yeah,
the complex shot for sure. We put 3 shots together. There's the first one was a drone that goes over the town, past the church, and right into that park. We, you know, snowed the street and had carriages and you know, people in costume and stuff. But then there was a lot of CG building out the town. I mean, you have to, you know, it's shot in Savannah, and you have to remove the future. There's so much stuff on the horizon that wouldn't have been there. So there's a lot of paint out, but also adding stuff there. But we had what's at the center of the frame was there in the shot. And then we had some we built out some CG trees that we could use to stitch together. So you go right through those trees. Those are CG trees, and they're stitching together to a cable cam that we put on the other side of the house. And so we had a cable cam that went right down to the window, and then the third shot was a techno crane outside of the set, because the house, we shot on a set for the interiors, and so we just duplicated the front window, clad the front, you know, around the front window, and then had the techno crane go right into the window, and then the scene with the people, and then digitally we're just stitching all 3 of those together.
Wow. I thought there was at least one cut in there somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's 3, but it's it was it was a complex shot, but Enrique and I, who's the DP, we thought about it a lot and planned it, and he was like, we have to shoot this at a very specific magic hour for all these things, and it was like pretty harrowing when
I can imagine. All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Sure.
I'm going to pass it on.
Sure.
Hello, I'm Ethan. Nice to
Hey.
meet you.
Nice to meet
This
you.
might be a little too philosophical considering we just met, but I still think it's a good question. So I'm just gonna go there, you know. What's one thing you learned from this project that you're glad that you learned that you can see yourself using in a future project? Was there anything unique about this project that like opened your eyes to something you hadn't really learned before?
It's too much to say that there is one thing, because this was in all honesty, I hadn't done really live action before. I just a little couple live action pieces on a Lego movie called Ninjago that I did before this. At the front
I've seen
and back of that. Oh, okay.
I love that movie.
Oh, thanks. So those two head and tail pieces, that was just like 4 days of stuff with Jackie Chan, but this was a completely different thing, and I had a wonderful director that was helping me on those that I didn't have on this. But I just had a fantastic crew that was like my film school. I mean, they really they lifted me up and carried me through that whole process. I've got a cat here right in front of you.
That's all right.
So it's like it's so hard for me to kind of boil it down into one thing that I learned, because I learned about live action filmmaking on this film, and and how important each of these roles are, and it is a big, deep question, and I'm gonna have to think deeply about it to try to boil it down, but the whole thing was like a master class, and the crew was they were all my teachers.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
What's up, Charlie? Thanks so much for doing this. My name's Jake.
Hey, Jake.
The movie was awesome. I wanted to ask, kind of like what, like you are doing a movie, you're recreating a movie in a different medium, also with a different, like, part of a series. Like Disney is doing these remakes right now.
Yeah.
What was that like? Like technically, like we can call you like a brand ambassador, right? Because you made a for Disney. So like this is something that we are seeing being rolled out these past few years. It's been really cool to see. What was it like working with Disney, having that, like, I'm sure it was intimidating to have it over your shoulder, but what's your take on how all of these films are cohesive? What's kind of pulling these together besides like the live action element?
Yeah, I mean, what connects them, all these live action films is maybe not for me to say. I think that the challenge with taking a title like Lady the Tramp, one of these classic crown jewels in the Disney kingdom, and taking it into a live action was incredibly daunting, and is still it still makes me nervous even though it's finished. Especially as an animator, I felt a tremendous responsibility to try to honor the original film. It's a film that's very dear to me, and so I think my approach was to try to zero in at the core of what the film is about emotionally, and try to tell that story. The things that we were adding to it, we only wanted to just dig deeper into what Tramp's story is, what might have happened to him to lead to the situation that he's in. Why is he so guarded? And you know, what sort of pain led to that? Those are the things that we were sort of trying to mine and dig into. You know, I wanted to give Lady a little bit more agency. I wanted to just wanted to dig deeper into who that character was, and Tessa was fantastic at going after those things. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm sort of rambling. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but you know, I think that the challenge with making these things is and should be great, because you know you have these amazing original films, and you need to try to honor them and bring something new to them.
Thanks. What was there somewhat of like a style guide, or can you give us some more detail on how the like what the involvement was like? Because they definitely feel somewhat cohesive.
Yeah.
Like there is a new Disney kind of world that's being made with these new movies.
Yeah, you know, that's not something, you know, certainly not in the sense that there wasn't someone standing over, you know, our shoulder and saying we've got to do, I mean, there's certain things but there's I think there is yeah, like in terms of the cohesiveness with the other films, I think that's an interesting point of view about it. But I didn't approach it in that way. You know, I've certainly looked at the other films, and especially Favreau's stuff. And you know, learning so much from him, and watching his unbelievable career. This guy is the best. And I guess, you know, there's probably some cohesiveness because of who is you know, the studio. It's, you know, it's Alan Horn and those are the same people. It's Alan and Sean Bailey and Bob Iger. And so it's, you know, that they're certainly, their tastes are influencing you. But maybe this is a closer answer to your question. I think for me, when I was approaching this film, I wanted it to feel like the way that I felt when I watched this original film. And that was sort of a North Star that I was always searching for. I wanted that feeling, and I kept pushing for it, and wanted, you know, that was the mission. I want this to feel that way that this movie made me feel when I saw it originally.
Awesome. That's my question. Thanks again.
Sure. Hey.
I'm Shen. I'm a freshman here.
Nice to meet you.
So, owning cats, did that impede your ability to make a dog movie?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I'm an animal person, and grown up with dogs and cats in my life, and I
didn't mean to assume.
No. But you know, these two cats that are running around right now had a big influence on me in this film, in the sense that they're both rescues, and I felt it was really important to get rescues for the dogs that we used in the film, and that was a really big part of this movie is the cast and how we found them, and you know, we found, you know, homes for all these dogs. I mean, the two main dogs are you know, they're living with those trainers. That bond with those trainers that formed in the process of making this movie was a truly beautiful thing to witness. And we all, like, as a crew, like, you know, hundreds of people there, just madly in love with these animals. It was so, like, they were just unbelievable.
So was there ever any point in the film where it was purely animated animals where you couldn't actually put the dogs in?
Yes. I should make this distinction because there's been a lot of confusion, I think, in the press about it. I would say about 60% of the shots of the dogs is 100% CG. There's no animal there. Those are fully animated, 100% animated assets. We're shooting an empty plate and adding the dog.
Because they're so well blended.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, it's all for us. I think that made the film and all the visual effects people that I worked with, incredibly high level people. We're looking at this with such critical eyes, and every little detail that is feels jarring to us is hard not to see. But it's really nice to hear that for the most part people are fooled.
Yeah, I couldn't tell.
Oh, that's great.
I wasn't sure if there was it was completely dogs with just animated faces, or if it was animated dogs with some animals intermixed.
Yeah, no, we there's shots where it's 100% the real animal. But I'm pulling that number out. I'm not sure exactly what the split is, but I would say it's like about 60-40. I think 40% of the shots are the real animals, and about 60% of the shots, maybe more like 70% of the shots are CG. There are a few shots in this film where we did just a little bit of muzzle manipulation on the shot of a real animal, but not many. Maybe 10 shots in the whole film where we did just a little bit of manipulation. Mostly that's a fully CG animal.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, just to say it, Frame Store, Weta, and MPC, who did the work. These are very, 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 very talented animation and lighting and everything. Modelers. Those teams are incredible.
No, for sure. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I don't think I got the answer.
Hi, I am Allison Mitchell, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, so bear with me, everyone. Sorry. But what specifically drew you to this project, and why do you think that this story is important to tell right now?
I think at its core, this love story. It is this love story that feels when I go back and look at that original film, which I did. Hadn't seen it in a few years, but I went back and I seen it a lot when I was much younger and becoming an animator. But then to go back and look at it, I was struck by how timeless this kind of love story is, and why I think that it feels that it has like a modern aspect to it is that, or a timeless aspect to it is that you have these people who are very, very different, come from these very with seemingly different backgrounds, and are very different, and find a commonality. They start, borderline, bigoted towards each other. Oh, it's a street dog. They're using these terms in a pejorative way, and then come to find out, how similar they are, and how much they have in common, and ultimately fall in love in what I think is a really genuine and beautiful way. So I think it's not so much that it's modern. It's just that it feels timeless. This kind of story feels timeless, and it's unique because it's told through dogs, and we can, in how the best science fiction you can disassociate and then it feels fresh or poignant. But I I don't know if does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, you also touched on stuff earlier too, so cool. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
How are you holding up, Charlie? You good to keep going for a little bit?
Yeah. Good.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Zach.
Hey.
Hey, so my original question was taken about the opening scene. I really like the smooth transition from the classic animation to the drone shot into the same scene. So I'm going to ask a different question.
Yeah. Just on that though, I forgot to talk about that. Is that the idea from the original film starts with these drawings, and I wanted to start with a drawing that then starts moving in 3D space, but it still feels like a drawing. That was a feat in and of itself that the guys at Wedded did, and we went through so many iterations to try to get that right, because we had to map the CG and then map the hand-drawn animation in 3D space onto that, and then transition. I mean, it was a thing.
It was impressive. Yeah, that's awesome. And so I wanted to ask a question about the animation with dogs. So Disney's done a lot of animation work with animals and other things like that. And so I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about the process with that. For this project, did you look into animators for your team that specifically worked with animals, or that have that kind of work in their portfolios? Like what was the process of doing this? And also, did you have any like reference to any other movies or projects or short films for the animation of dogs?
Yeah. Well, we definitely looked at Jungle Book when we started the project. Lion King hadn't come out yet, but we were looking at Jungle Book a lot, and what the specific choices about like what is successful about lip sync was a big one. Like where's the right level? Because there's lots of bad examples out there, but I thought the Jungle Book was a really great example of using the right amount of lip sync so it doesn't feel too overly articulated, and some would argue that this movie is too articulated. I know that Lion King got dinged for being just emotionless or something like that, which I don't think is fair. Just to stick up for that movie, I think the cats don't have the same level of articulation in their eyebrows, especially, and you start pushing a cat's eyebrows around like that, and it'll look fake. And I even heard Favreau was talking about it and saying that they started to look like creatures and they didn't look like the cats anymore. So I just think that's a little bit, just to stick up for that movie. I think that's a little bit unfair. And we had it's sort of a blessing that dogs are so emotive, and there's especially these two dogs. When we had the real dogs on set, we're shooting footage of them all the time. And Monty, who played the tramp, he's got like these crazy eyebrows that are constantly moving, and he's so emotive. So we were really just looking, more than anything else, we were looking at him and her and the stuff that they're doing naturally on their own, and then looking at look at that move, look at that little thing that he does with his. It's like he does this thing where, when he's turning his head to the left, he'll lead with his right eyebrow. So his eyebrow will go first, and then his head will turn. And he would pull his shoulder down into that turn. All these little details. I mean, the level of detail that we're examining the animals. That was the main reference point.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
We've got 5 people left. Does that sound about right for you?
Yeah, great.
Cool. All right. Hey, what's up? My name is Jared. My original question was also taken previously, but there was a few shots in this movie. I just wanted to ask really quick about some of the shots that I wasn't quite sure how they were done. Particularly, there was the shot with the cats destroying the living room. I was kind of curious about how exactly was that shot, like, was that scene done? Was it like, how much was done practically, and how much was done in post? That's like kind of the.
It's kind of 50-50. I mean, that whole scene in particular, is, you know, the very hybrid. We shot it last. It was the last thing we shot because we destroyed the set.
Nice.
and we shot it in order because we had to. And so we did a lot of very practical special effect stuff where we're, you know, just pulling filament and knocking chairs over and rigged the cabinets from behind the wall and it moved it, and like, you know, the cats are supposed to be climbing up it, so we're like moving it around, and then the cats are animated on top of that. It took a lot of planning, storyboarding and planning. My great friend Chris Riccardi storyboarded it, did an incredible job, and then we, you know, planned it, shot it all practically. A lot of the practical stuff in terms of animals was Lady. She's practical in a lot of that, and she's like about 50-50. Some of it's the real dog, and some of it's a fully animated dog. But the cats are 100% CG.
Nice. All right. Sweet. Thanks.
Hello, Charlie. I'm Matthew, and I'm just beginning here. So I know often like actors sometimes like get in character on the set, but for an actor in animation, or like for the voices of the dogs, they're in just a recording booth and they have to imagine all the things. So how would you like help an actor like get in the character and know what's going on and what emotions they should be emoting?
Well, you know, I think one of the reasons that Brigham and Jess Virtue and Sean Bailey and all the people at Disney were interested in me for this project is that I come from an animation background, and that's an area that I'm really familiar with. Not just the animation, but also working with actors in a recording booth, and the process there actually was very similar to when I was working with the actors on set. The you know, the difference on set is that you're physically blocking all these things, and when you're rehearsing, and there's all the physical component to it, and that stuff is, you know, in a recording booth is happening in their minds, but the conversations are the same, and you're talking about these things, you know, beforehand, you know, just digging into the story, talking about these things. There is a bit of, you know, I'm the dungeon master that is like, for all you Gary Gygax fans out there, you know, I'm the one that's saying, okay, so you're on top of the train now, and you're yelling down to them, and I'm telling the story and getting them, you know, into the, you know, painting the picture. And sometimes we had footage, you know, like on this movie we had footage, and we had pre-vids or post-vids, where, you know, we have the shots that we shot cut together, and we have like very rudimentary animation of where the dogs are and what they're doing, for the voice actors to act to. They're visually watching it. But most of the time, honestly, we're just talking, and it's in their imagination. And it's me saying, you got to be louder because we're outside and there's a lot of people talking and it's really loud right now, and go. And that is, you know, that's sort of the challenge that I guess I'm sort of used to, with working with just voice acting.
Oh, well, thank you. That's
sure
insightful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tall. It's okay. I'm Grant. I've been in the cinema program for a little while. I've liked the original. I like this one a lot. So what I say is not supposed to be rude. I'm just getting your opinion.
Yeah.
When making a remake, how do you? It's kind of difficult to not be influenced completely by intertextuality. So how do you make a movie like this that's not a carbon copy but an additive to
the story itself?
I mean, that is the biggest challenge, and I think it's, you know, in some places very successful, and other places not, you know, not as successful. But that's the main challenge is, you know, what are we going to do? Like, you know, what feels like we want to do. We want to honor this and do this, you know, as is. Where does it feel like, oh, you know, what we could add to this is a joke? You know, maybe that is something that'll be fun because it's surprising, and you know, what feels like about the original film feels like, oh, we could there's something more there that feels like there's something deeper that we could try to get at, and those are just, you know, you're following your instincts and you're trying things, and sometimes you're wrong, and then you're like, oh, that was stupid, and let's cut that, and sometimes, you know, I think we hit the mark, you know, really beautifully, like Tramp's backstory and expanding on what they're saying on the top of the hill. You know, very, very short scene in the original film. It very important scene to me, but I felt like there was some more things to explore there. And yeah, I mean, there's not a roadmap. It is
Right.
It is just following instincts and conversations. You know, Brigham, who's the producer, we would have just deep conversations, go on and on and on. And with Andrew and Carrie that wrote it, we were talking about it and trying and failing and trying and you know,
Yeah.
I'm succeeding.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Scott, and a little short to you right now.
We line people up not according to height. It's very
I have a question about editing and animating. Can editors make any changes to animations at all? And do editors ever do any animation?
I mean, I know some editors that do. I mean, that do animation. Can they make changes? Certainly, and they can ask for changes too. And this happens quite a lot. I mean, there's ideas that you know, we'll have an editorial, and sort of the beauty of animation is that you can go back into scenes and reiterate and do make a change. Like you know, especially scenes that are full CG, like the scene in this movie that's on the hilltop is a 100% CG environment. That's the only scene in the movie that's a full CG environment. But a scene like that, we can re-lens, and we can try, you know, totally different things, new lines of dialogue, and then new lip sync. Yeah, and then the editor's asking for new lip sync, and then, you know, sometimes it's just like, it'd be great if they moved faster there. Could we reanimate that to make them move faster? And you know, the editors is you know, one of the filmmakers on this, and is asking for those things the same way that I'm asking.
Okay, thanks.
Cool.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, I'm the last one, so I'll be quick.
I got some more.
Oh, Duane has some more. I had a question, but Duane stole my first question, so
Okay.
I had to do another one. Talking about how from the beginning, this was always planned to be a streaming release.
Yeah.
And you know, not a normal theatrical release like any other movie. So how was that? Did that make it any different in the process? Make it harder or easier, or anything of that sort?
The main thing about that was they wanted the title for. I mean, there's the pressure of it. It's like, this is going to be one of the, you know, launch titles for the the new platform, and that was there's always pressure. It's like, well, no matter what it is, there's pressure. It's just different forms of it. But the main pressure of it was, we're going to launch this streaming service in November, and so we have to get it done by then. It has to be done by that, and that was a very short process. We started in March of 18 and started pre-production in March of 18, and this is a deceivingly complex movie. I mean, there is a tremendous amount of complexity with real animals on set and period the stuff, and then all the animation, all the animated shots, as well as like song sequences, and it was a lot, man. There was babies, there was horses. It was complex, and also I'm first time live action director, so it was tough. So I think the looming deadline of Disney Plus and us having to finish it by then was the biggest challenge on this film for us. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that definitely answered my question. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I don't want to let you go. There's two things I want to ask.
Yeah. Oh, please.
First is, probably a little bit before this started going, there was some controversy about that movie. It's A Dog's Life, and some animal issues, injuries. And going into that, was that, oh, what's this? Oh, smart Alex. All right. So I mean, just was there? I mean, I know that the dogs were all like adopted dog. I mean, what was that? What was the sort of the mantra on set as far as that was concerned?
There
As far as
were
animal safety.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of conversations about that movie, and that was a Disney film, and what had happened, and we were extremely aware of that, and
I forgot that was a Disney film. So.
Oh, maybe not actually.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't a Disney film. It felt like it. It felt like something that happened in the film community. Like we all felt somehow ownership of that mistake, and we're hyper aware of that. Meanwhile, these dogs are so important to us and to these trainers, that it was their safety was of the utmost importance. We also had the blessing of this film is that anything that felt like on any level that's going to freak that dog out, or that's too dangerous or too scary, we're going to do it in CG, because we're doing that anyway. So we made sure that everything was safe. I mean, you have animal safety there with you every day, but honestly, the people that are the most concerned about the safety of the animals are the trainers. They're we found these dogs and trained them to do this job, and it's like what Mark Forbes, who was the trainer on this, who is the best. One of the things that he said early on, he said, look, this is them coming to set is play for them, and it has to be fun. And what we're asking them to do is a game, and that's the way that he trains them. He makes this into this game, and it is reward it with treats and things like that. But what you find is that the biggest reward is that it's fun, and the good job and good boy and all that stuff that he's getting from the trainer. Any moment that turns and it's not fun and it feels scary or something, they don't want to come to set, and we're done. There's no chance that we were going to get into sticky situations like that.
Yeah. So just Brigham talked to me a lot about sort of the casting. I mean, you went all over to try to find. Were they puppies when you found them, or were they just young? Because they weren't like professional dog actors. until they were found and then trained to be that way. Can you just? I was assuming that was the first question someone was going to ask, and no one did. So
Yeah, no, it was the difficulty is that you have such unique looking dogs in the film, in the animated film, and
you have to match it. Yeah.
And it needs to match on some level, especially Lady. I mean, she's a Cocker Spaniel. It's such a uniquely iconic look for the tramp. I mean, he's a tramp and he's a mutt, and that's part of the idea there. Anyway, but it was we searched far and wide in rescues, animal rescues, and found them. Auntie that played the tramp was found on the side of the road in New Mexico, and then Mark and Matilde trained them up from scratch. They had never done any work like this before. They were just strays. Not late. She was working in Utah, I think, and she was a hunting dog, and is just like she is like a firecracker. She's got so much energy, and her owner was like, this dog needs a job. And
put her to work.
Yeah, we need to put her to work. But just has just an amazing look. Such a beautiful dog, and they both needed these. That was one of the things that Mark and Matilde were. These animals need to have a lot of energy. They have a lot of energy, and they want to they want to play, and a lot of energy and a lot of focus. They're like really extraordinary dog.
Now, just the very last thing is there was a story Brigham told me about Lady's ears, and and I can't remember it, but I remember it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, well,
what happened? There was something like the hair grew out long or something, or
it wasn't growing fast enough. Her original owner had shaved her, and this is like something that they do like every year they shave the dogs, and that's the thing about Lady from the movie. She's got these very long sort of luxurious Cocker Spaniel ears. It's like her signature. Yeah. And we were getting closer and closer to shooting, and her ear hair was not growing long enough. It was and we were starting to panic. Brigham was really starting to panic. and we worked with this incredible groomer who's very famous in England for grooming, especially competition grooming of poodles. But so she was like, we can do extensions, and she got poodle hair and did these extensions, and it looked terrible. It looked so fake. Oh my God, what are we gonna do? And we had a couple of Cocker Spaniels that were like the sort of stunt doubles for Lady. There's a couple dogs that could do like jumps and things like that Lady didn't really do, and one of them just wasn't really working out as a stunt double. Had a great look about him, but he wasn't really working out. And Brigham had the idea. He said, well, I mean, he's not using that ear hair. So we gave him a haircut and then used his fur to put extensions into her ears, and it was perfect. And he did his part. Of course, his ears, his ear hair grew over the course of the show, and then hers did as well. By the end of the shoot, hers were long enough that she didn't need the extensions anymore. But yeah, she wore extensions. She had a full hair and makeup team.
All right. Yeah, this was so great. Thank you so much. It's so insightful. It's such a unique project compared to what the sort of typical thing we're working on and or talking about. So it's a really great perspective. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's really fun.
And everyone, big round of applause for Charlie. And thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. See you later, guys.
Have a good night.